Hey everyone, welcome to Go Live, the Saturday evening talk show. Shout out to Isla for that dank intro. I've just seen that. It's so good introducing our guest, but taking away my job away from me. But I love it. I love it, Isla. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Give love to Isla in the chat, please. She's lovely. We have a great show for you today. And I'm so happy to welcome our guest. But before we welcome our guest, let me quickly introduce co-host, co-founder, serial streamer, Asa Walker. How are you doing, sir?
I'm so good. The sun's out today and
Yeah,
I
of
hate
course,
it.
you
But
love
apart from that, apart from that, yeah, it's all good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a great show. Thank you everyone for joining in. If you're regular here, smash that like button. You know we're going to swim in the sauce. I'm going to go straight into the topics. Returning to the show is the lovely Luke, aka Insipid Ghost, looking sexy with his glasses. How you doing, sir?
I am great, man. Thank you guys for having me back on. It is a pleasure. That was the coolest intro that I've seen, and I will go back and watch it again. That's awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
No, thanks. Always a pleasure to have you on. Your takes are great. We'll need your insight today as we discuss the show that, this week's topics anyway, primarily dominated by yesterday's show, but we've got a few topics in there. Guys in chat as well, if you guys want to suggest topics as well, I'm reading the chat. I'll try and do my best to manage. Joining us for the first time to the show is the lovely Erica. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope your debut is going to be fun for you.
I mean, it's so good to be here. It's off to an awesome start. I didn't expect that intro. That was really, really nice. It's awesome. But yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here, and I can't wait to get into these topics and hang out with you guys.
No, neither can we, honestly. We're in similar circles. I've seen your show, love your content. You're also way better than Gears than Asa ever will be, and you'll carry me to victory on that because I've seen your gameplay clips. Before we get into the show, Luke's done this before because he's been on the show before. But when we do get a new guest, is that your cat?
I warned you guys. When I'm on the show, she's on the show. We're a two, woman group here. Sorry about that.
No, that's apologize. We love the cat's going to become a meme on the show,
she can't help it.
I love it. No problems with the cat. But as we get new guests on the show, Erica, we always like to, as you're a content creator, we want to get a little bit of information about you, your journey into content creation, what made you go into it, and what's your experience so far. So can you tell our viewers what made you start this whole thing?
Definitely. How much time we got? I mean, long story short, I've been playing games forever since I can remember and picking up a controller. But when it came to like online multiplayer and Xbox Live, I was on it like crazy back, that generation. And I would go on YouTube and see other gamers display their gameplay, like their multiplayer matches with the live commentary. And that hooked me. I wanted to do that. I wanted to capture all those moments, the fails, the victories, the frustrations, the like real emotions that go into gaming. That was like awesome to me. So I started, with the Dazzle. I don't know if anybody remembers the Dazzle, to record on that thing. Old tech there. Yeah. And then it was like the Hauppauge, and then it was the Elgato, and I just kept going with it, recording gameplay. And then it became into, commentaries, and then podcasting, and that came along. And it's been maybe a 10-year journey, I want to say, something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, it must be because you're mentioning the Hauppauge and stuff. Those are
Yes. Very casual, very, kind of just a hobby. And it still is, I still treat it that way. I still have fun with it. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it. That's kind of my motto.
That's good. That's a good ethos.
Yeah, and I love it. I love sharing my experience with the viewers and them interacting with me. So I love streaming. I've been on the Twitch gang, which we call it, the Twitch gang. I've been on that on Twitch for the past couple years, going a little stronger with that. So YouTube was like the start, and then I kind of like went into streaming on Twitch, and I'm kind of combining them and trying to, build a brand, build a community, and it's been super just rewarding. I love doing this stuff. I love gaming. I love Gears. You got my shirt here. Luke, you like Gears as well. That's how I started. I was Gears of War, Call of Duty when it was good. And then it went into other games, Soulsborne games. I love the Souls series. I love difficult games. I just love sharing those moments of like struggling and then victory. It's just my ultimate passion, I guess.
It's the ultimate story, isn't it? Adversity and overcoming that in a game setting. That's
yes,
cool.
I love it. It's great.
I'm going to get your viewpoints on Gears as well. That's a topic I thought I might touch upon. Now that I know Luke has a Gears little poster on the wall, it's time to pick your brains on where you think Gears needs to go next. But we'll talk about that later on. Well, you've kind of touched upon it now, Erica, but what's your favorite gaming franchise?
Give me 2 seconds. This cat's going. Give me 2 seconds.
Whilst you sort that out, Luke, I was going to ask you, I never actually asked you this. What was your favorite gaming franchise of all time? I know it's a tricky question.
It's one of those things that like your favorite game changes based on your mood or what you're thinking about or what you're into in that moment. On some days I'd answer Halo, others it'd be Gears. Right now it's probably the Arkham games, but Halo and Gears are up there. And they constantly vie for one or the other. And I mean, I look over at my bookshelf and the only physical books I tend to keep are video game ones, and it's tons of Halo and then all the Gears books as well. But either of them at any given moment could be on the flip of the coin of the day. Like the two figures that sit here on my little shelf are my little Master Chief and Marcus, and they chill with me.
Love
That's
it.
right.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready now. What was the question again?
I thought you were prepping to just buying time to think about the answer to the question, but the question
I was trying to, take care of that. But no, what was? I'm sorry.
The question was, what is, and this is going to be a tricky one because I'm putting you on the spot here, but what is your favorite franchise or favorite game franchise of all time?
All time. Sheesh.
No pressure.
It's so hard to answer because growing up, it was Zelda. It was Nintendo games like Metroid. I grew up on that stuff. So I love that, the action adventure, the Metroidvanias. But nowadays, it's like I mentioned Souls, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne. Like I love that stuff. So I feel like that kind of took over now. Gears of War is another one. I mean, like I said, I started with Gears on YouTube. So I've had this long relationship with Gears, and it's really like the game I can thank for me even being here. Honestly, like if I really think about it, the highs and lows, even though the game frustrates me so much on the multiplayer, I always come back. It's how I met so many friends on here as well. So
that's cool.
Gears is gonna always be dear to me, always. So I would say Gears of War and like the Soulsborne genre is like kind of my wave these days. My favorite.
That's really interesting because I have some questions on. But then it'd be very interesting to get your take, both of yours, on where you think the franchise needs to go next. Because sometimes my views are seen as controversial with the Gears community about where the direction of the game should go. But we'll touch upon that.
As being controversial, I don't believe it.
I know, it's shocking, right? Wait till you see my next video that's coming out. Oh my
God.
Curious.
I'm curious what caused controversy. What did you say? I'm curious.
Well, let's talk about it now because I think it's a good segue. And guys in chat, tell me if you agree with me or you agree with the guests if they have different views and opinions. But I think Gears of War's formula is so out of date; it needs to change as far as it's say maybe the single player. The whole game needs to do like a reboot, like a rejig, like God of War did. Make it more action, make it more survival horror almost. Make you less bullet spongy. Make it really just ramp up the tension, maybe even make it more linear, but make it more brutal. The combat more brutal. Like on screen, we've got Gears playing, and Marcus Phoenix just chopping off Locust. Make it like all that 1-to-1 encounter really hard and meaningful. That's my thing. So as opposed to what it's now, like you bullet sponge, you slide across these conveniently placed blocks everywhere. You can see what the battle's going to be just based on the map, and I just think that's a bit antiquated. But King Darian agrees with me. So does Equinox. But what do you think, Erica?
Well, I'm looking at the stream, and you're showing the classic Gears of War, like the first trilogy, and I do agree with you. I've said this many times that I love, the dark, the gritty, the darker colors. Gears now is very, very colorful. It's very vibrant. It's very spongy. I guess I could say that, like you said. maybe spongy's not the right word. It's just more like lifeless. There's a comparison video where you can watch like the old how the bullets hit the body and how they're a locust just hurt and he's crawling and blood is just trailing him on the ground and things like that. And now it disappears immediately. There's not that that real, I guess, realism or attention to detail is just missing. So I'm with you on
the
that.
video. I think that Crobat guy, and he said how that things disappearing, the visceral nature. There's a lack of permanence, I guess, with that kind of stuff. But what do you think about the tonal change, or the fundamental gameplay change to make it more linear, more like one-to-one combat? Like one locust guy could really mess you up, that kind of thing.
That would be interesting. You mentioned God of War and like kind of having that, I guess, back and forth combat using maybe a shield or something like that, to where it could be a one-on-one kind of thing and get brutal. I could see that. I think that would be interesting to see with Gears, because Gears started brutal. It was seen as a brutal game, a very graphic game. So that's interesting. I've never heard anybody put it that way. So you got me curious about that. I think that would be interesting to see, and I'd be for it. Honestly, I'd like to see that. Yeah.
That's interesting. What about you, Luke? Do you agree with Erica that kind of change is something you'd invite, or maybe you're a bit skeptical about it?
I'm very skeptical about it, but it's not because I don't understand the reason why you all are raising those concerns. Certainly, Gears has staled or perhaps overstayed its welcome in terms of the genre, which I think is kind of what you're getting at. But I will push back on the idea that it's not visceral and the mechanics aren't there. It is bright and colorful, and certainly in many spots, but that is a big difference, of course, from Gears 1 and 2, which was far darker in terms of tone. I still think the writing is very dark and mimics that same element. I think in Gears 4 they touched on a bit more horror elements, and of course talking about the campaigns, which I think are genuinely fantastic, save a few qualms here and there. And mechanically, I think the games are still top notch. However, people are not thrilled by Gears because it has been largely the same game since the 2006 release. It's just iterated and improved here and there. When you're asking for that kind of God of War re-up, that re-glow to the game, that fresh take on it, I think rather than rebooting a universe, as it were, still playing in a very well-established and well-crafted universe, we could see spin-offs, not like Gears Judgment, which was actually a fine game in its own right overall, save for some weird multiplayer quirks, but we could see this go in different directions. And Cliff Bleszinski even tweeted this at one point, so this is not my original idea, but the idea of an Onyx Guard Spec Ops first-person shooter in the dark with special weapons and special tech that the Onyx Guard was known to have, from Azura or otherwise. The idea that you could take different genres and play with it within Gears. I know they had Gears Tactics, which is wonderful. There's a fantastic game, and really and truly, if you know how to play Gears third person, that game comes very natural, even if you're not in tune with kind of XCOM style shooters. But people are not, it's not fresh. It doesn't move the needle for people outside of people like myself who are really into the campaigns and casually the multiplayer. Or it sounds like, Erica, I don't want to put words in your mouth, it sounds like you're very into the multiplayer elements as well. I don't think we're moving the needle in terms of getting more people excited for Gears, or by default Xbox, and it needs a fresh take on it. So I wouldn't say abandon the gameplay concepts that it's got going, but maybe hold on Gear 6 and do some spin-off experiments. Let that team rest or try things.
Okay.
See, that'd be interesting. I wasn't a big fan of Judgment. I gotta say, that was a big letdown, but I'd be open to anything Gears. I love the universe. I love Tactics. You brought up Tactics. Great game. Love that game. That actually, I credit that game for making me a little bit better in the multiplayer, because the angles that you do in that game, it's something about Tactics and taking cover in those turn-based ways. It made me think differently with the multiplayer and slow down and really methodically think about 3 steps ahead. It definitely did that. It was really cool. So I love Tactics, and but the whole let me just say
about Judgment. Well, tell me about it. I just want you to hear about Judgment when you're done. I'm curious what it was that you had qualms with.
Well, I'll just answer it. The single player, it was very different. You know, you would start the level or start the certain mission or whatever, and you would do those little challenges. Remember, they'd be like on the wall. You would touch it, and it would start a challenge, and it felt kind of arcadey. I kept seeing my friends list pop up, like, oh, this so and so has points.
Sure.
You're about to pass them, and it just kind of it didn't feel Gears. It just felt it wasn't bad. It wasn't the most worst game ever, but it just wasn't Gears to me. And I've actually been curious to go back and play it again. I started playing through the original trilogy again. I got through Gears 2. I'm on to Gears 3 soon. So I was thinking about it, like maybe I will revisit it and see if I still feel the same way. Because back then, you know, I wasn't feeling it, but who knows now? You know, maybe things can change. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
J Rock, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. He said, and very similar to you, Erica, his Gears of War was the one that started it all for him too. And since 2006, Gears of War remastered.
Yes.
Gears of War 2 remastered needs to happen. He says 4K 120 FPS. Do you give that a shout?
Fully
Gears 2's
agree.
multiplayer was the worst though, wasn't it? Wasn't it the weakest multiplayer?
Which one?
Gears 2.
Yeah, that's the one that had the rough start, tons of server issues. That was a mess to try and play for so long, but that by the time they got it functional, they were on to Gears 3, and they really experimented a lot with the Gears 2 servers, if memory serves.
Yeah, they did.
To help with the Gears 3 stuff.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was a terrible mess. But that was the first one I really got into. So at the time, I didn't know any better. I was like, okay, I guess this is just how the game is. And then once I went on the forums and I saw everyone complaining, I'm like, oh, this is broken. This is bad. But I just was so in love with it and getting better at it. Gears is not an easy game to pick up. It's not, especially if you're playing with people who know how to play. It's rough. It's rough.
Definitely.
And I guess that's,
you're sick of the game.
Oh,
I've been
thank
watching
you.
your clips all day today and watching your triple kills with the, what's that called? I forgot the name. The bow with the...
the long shot?
Torque bow, sorry.
Oh, torque bow.
Yeah.
The triple kill, you saw that.
Yeah, I was watching your clips. I was watching your clips. We do research on, I guess.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, you were great on that. So you're really good at that game.
Thank you.
Like you, Games Lord, thank you so much for the HRK10. I have no idea which currency that is, but he says, give me difficulties to choose if I get... Oh, he wants to pick the highest difficulty. He's like you, isn't it? That's why you like the Soulsborne games, because there's a challenge there.
Yeah, I do love the challenge, but you know what? I am not about the highest difficulties in some games like Gears or something like that. I am not picking the highest difficulty because I want to run through it. I don't want to be there in the same encounter for an hour. I'm just not about that. If a game's naturally difficult, like a Souls, cool. But if I'm picking, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to put myself through a headache at the same time, you know. Yeah.
Shout out to Cole Eastwood in the chat. Love you, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell Rant to stop doing his show at the same time as us. Thank you. Asa, are you a big Gears head? Because you played Tactics recently, but I don't know if you're a big Gears head of the mainstream games.
Yeah, not next to like some of the Xbox community that are really, really into it. I've played all the Gears games, enjoyed all the Gears games. It was quite interesting listening to Erica brought up the change in color palette over the years. Gears was notorious for its browns and greys, and that's one thing that I wouldn't like to see the series go back to. I quite like this. It's polar opposite now. It's one of the most colourful games that there is, next to something like Sea of Thieves, but with more diversity. It's bright and vibrant all the time. It's still, we've spoken about it before. For me, I'm actually with Gaz on this one, which is pretty rare, in that I would like to see it go back more towards the kind of the horror and the tension that Gears 1 had, rather than the stop and pop and the spectacle that it's moved towards. It used to be a lot more like Gears Tactics, in that it was all about maneuvering around the map and getting an angle to actually land a shot with a really inaccurate weapon. And the later games in the series, you find a good bit of cover and you pick everything off, and that's it. It looks nice, it looks great, you move on and it looks great and everything's colourful and things happen and it's spectacular. But I do miss the first one. I miss going in the dark and getting swarmed by whatever those things were that just ripped you to pieces. And
Krill.
I died again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Remember that. Oh, you finally agree on something. Faisal, thanks so much for the £2 super chat. It says Gears needs more intense horror elements. Shout out to you, man. I agree with you.
I would love a horror dedicated Gears game. That's not Gears 6, but just one that's dedicated to the terrible. Like maybe you play as a Stranded. You're just a person. You're not a Gears buff dude. You're not a beast guy.
Yeah.
You're just a guy or a girl trying to survive in that world. That would be haunting and amazing, and they could do so many cool things. As much as I want the Spec Ops game with the Onyx Guard, the idea of going through and having almost an Alien Isolation survival style, or Metro Exodus might be a better example, trying to move through in its dark and horror style, that might be a cool thing with Locust all around you, or Swarm if you're desperate.
Yeah, that'd be good though, wouldn't it? Because then you won't piss off the hardcore Gears fans, because then you've done it as a side thing. And it's also almost like what they did with ODST. What they didn't do, they didn't go far enough with that. They didn't make them as exposed as they would be as a non-Spartan, but in ODST. But that would be really good. So yeah, that's good.
Well, and I think that's what Judgment, and to Erica's point, those things on the wall, that arcadey feel, they were trying to give us the ODST for Gears. I think that's what it was trying to be. It didn't go far enough in the direction to make it different, and they need different in order to evolve that franchise. But I will always say I love Gears, and I think Gears. I mean, the Gears is why I play on Xbox. That's how I ended up with an Xbox 360. I sold Plasma in college to buy my first Xbox 360 so that I could play Gears of War 1. It's a special franchise.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's a special one. Big Cloud Gaming, thank you for the $5 super chat. He goes, that's Cap, Erica. We all know you love to play on the hardest difficulty since you love the Souls games.
Nah. If it's, I mean, like I said, if it's like naturally that's the only difficulty, I'm doing it. But if there's certain games like God of War, I did the one that was just before the hardest. So like I'll go hard, but not like to the point where I'm bashing my head against the wall. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I'm the same as you. I don't go too, because then it doesn't become fun. It's a different type of game entirely. I agree with you. Same. Dodge with a £5 super chat. Hug me, Asa, he says. Great panel. Him and his little boy approved. Thank you so much, Dodge. Maximum hugs from me if you'll accept them. I don't know. Asa's very anti.
I will allow you to hug me, Dodge.
Asa, this is fact. First time I met Asa, I tried to do the little bro hug thing. He just like held me by. So I'm like, what are you doing? But that's Asa for you. Thank you everyone in chat. It's good. I've been reading your views on it. Someone said they want an open world RPG elements of Gears. There's a lot of different ideas. A lot of people said bring Marcus back. They want Marcus front and center. What do you think about that, actually, Erica?
Marcus front and center. I mean, he did come back a little bit in the new trilogy, and it's kind of too bad that JD, who was supposed to be the main character in Gears 4, and then Kate in Gears 5. It's an argument that they fell kind of flat. They weren't really strong protagonists.
I agree with that.
Kate a little bit more, just because of her history with who she is, without spoiling. But Marcus is freaking Marcus. I mean, people love Marcus. I love Marcus. I was so happy to see him in these games, and when he actually appeared in Gears 4, I felt the game got better from there on. Because the beginning, I was a little not feeling it with the robots and the the DBs. Yeah, it was a little weird, and all colorful. And I'm like, okay, it's cool, but I'm missing that like heart of Gears. And then Marcus shows up and it was like, yes, here we go. So I love Marcus. I'm with, if he's there, he's there. I'm cool with it. But some people actually think he's got to be on his way out, that maybe it's time for him, to go.
I agree with that. Luke, you're shaking your head there. Do you agree with that? Eric, no, don't.
Yes. but not because I'm anything against Marcus, but we've had him for so long, and clearly JD was supposed to be better liked than he was. Kate Diaz, I thought, was very well acted, fairly well written, but I think Gears fatigue is partially why she didn't catch on. I mean, Laura Bailey was just incredible. The animations for her were wonderful. The story elements are pretty neat. I really like Kate Diaz as a character. But to Erica's point, they kind of do fall a little bit flat. And part of that, I think, is that Marcus and Master Chief for Gears and Halo, respectively, were the faces of their franchise. And those franchises are now getting into the 15, 20-year range. And so we need new, but we also want nostalgia. And how do you balance that? And I'm glad it's not a problem I have to solve. But it's the same thing, when they started to bring the next trilogy of Star Wars movies. How do you be Star Wars and have new people? You need to pay homage and respect and still get people to be into it. There is a main character that seemed there is a core value of Gears that's almost intangible that does seem to be missing at some points right now. And I think it is largely because they're trying very hard to please the hardcore and multiplayer, because they are never happy. And then you go to the very casual, enjoy the campaign with some buddies sometimes, and they're happy, but that's a very short level of engagement with the games. It doesn't seem to mainstay, and so that's a tough line to walk. And we talked a lot about Gears, which is great, and I'm enjoying it. But it's a tough thing to navigate, you know?
Yeah. No, I don't envy the challenge that the coalition have on that. That's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough. Everyone has some very diverse opinions on this. So yeah, it's going to be tough for them. Absolutely. They've taken over that franchise.
I apologize for cutting you off, but several people have noted Hivebusters. That was a wonderful 3-hour experience. Fantastic to release into Game Pass. And I hope they continue to experiment with Gears 5. I've actually really enjoyed little DLCs like that, but also they've started to play a bit more as Rod Ferguson has left. They've played a little bit more with the types of multiplayer characters they're dropping in. And to a casual player like me, I maxed some of my battle passes on various seasons. I think I've maxed 3 of the 5 or 6 or operations. But as a casual guy, I like them playing with their characters and getting us more fun guest characters, different things like that. Some of the hardcore really just want that OG experience, but I could care less about somebody that's hardcore wall bouncing in what I enjoy, right? Because it's hard to get somebody new into Gears if somebody just rolls all over them, to Erica's earlier point. By the same token, she or any of her friends or colleagues in that realm should not have that experience taken away or dumbed down. They've just got to find a way to appease both groups.
Yeah, it's tough because, like you said, I mean, the hardcore, they're never happy, and they try and do things that can bring in the casuals, but the casuals won't stay because the game is tough. It's not easy, like we said, it's not easy to pick up. And you got somebody wall bouncing on you, tearing you up. You have no idea how you even died. These casuals are gonna be like, forget this. This is just a Game Pass game. I'm out. So I don't envy that challenge at all. Like we were saying, like I don't want to be in that position because they gotta find a way to bring in the casuals, but also keep the hardcore happy, and that's very difficult in Gears.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the same with Halo. It's the same kind of thing. They don't want sprint in the game, and I'm like, I'm hardcore, but to me, no sprint just like you're going a bit over the top. But there's
anybody that says they don't want sprint is lying to themselves. It's ridiculous. Why would a Spartan not sprint? It's ludicrous.
Oh man, there are threads dedicated to it. Trust me, I swam into that forum thing. I didn't come out unscathed. That's what.
I've not followed that argument, but I never want my Spartan to be going less than maximum speed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, man, we're not supposed to gatekeep in gaming, and it really is meant to be for everybody. But when I use the term "those people," that's who I'm referring to, the non-Halo sprinters.
We'll move on from the Gear Shuttle. That's been very interesting. But J-Rock, $5 super chat. Thank you so much. And Erica, you might want to tackle this. I don't know if because you play Judgment. Because the best thing that came out Judgment was Overrun, which I don't know what that is. We need something like that.
That was a game mode, right? I don't think I played much of it.
It's like Reverse Horde, I think you played.
Is it called? I thought that was Beast.
Is that Beast mode?
Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm thinking of a different Gears.
Was the Overrun the weapon? No, that wasn't right. Was it?
No,
I don't know.
You know what?
Easily we could Google this.
I'm drawing a blank because me and Judgment, we didn't have a long relationship, so I'm drawing a blank on that.
Yeah, so let us know, J-Rock, what that is, because we kind of... It's a multiplayer mode. Okay, it says Escape was not it, so that's a multiplayer mode. But if you let us know in chat, we'll have a look at it. This week, we have had the ID at Xbox Game Showcase, which was, it was very interesting. Me and Asa watched it together, not holding hands or anything. But the show, we have our mixed views. We have a video coming out with just our reactions to it. Cut it down because the show was unnecessarily long. That's a little spoiler into what our feeling was about it, but there were some great games in there, and it's good to see indies just we call them indie games, but the quality that they're turning out, I mean, indies for me are more exciting sometimes than the AAA games from bigger studios. I want to get your guys in chat, guys and girls, let me know in chat what you think about the games. What games were you most hyped about? Ace is playing the little sizzle reel of all the indie games. But I want to talk to you guests. What do you guys think? Erica, what do you think about Exomecha that came out? That's kind of multiplayer, free-to-play, robots, lots of chrome, weirdness in that first-person shooter. Did that appeal to you?
That was the first person shooter, right? I think they've showed that before. Am I
Definitely,
right?
yeah,
Okay. It looks cool. I like the movement. It looks nice. I don't know if it's gonna have like any kind of multiplayer, or if it's just single player. I'm not sure on that.
Multiplayer.
All multiplayer. Okay, cool. Even better. Because that's one of them. That's the quiet one, believe it or not. Yeah, those who know me know I don't do very well with single player first person. I get motion sickness, so it's a weird thing. But with multiplayer, single player I get sick. Multiplayer I'm good because I can control it. So if it's a multiplayer game, then cool. I'm a little more on board. Yeah, it looks awesome though.
It's a
in
weird
terms of
one.
Controlling it, just curious about that. Wouldn't you have more control in single player when you can go, I feel sick, I'm going to pause it? Or...
True, but I think it's because it's kind of like they're directing me where to go, and if I get lost in any kind of way, if I don't know which door I'm looking for, it's downhill. It's downhill.
Competitive drive overrides the nausea.
Yeah, like whereas with multiplayer, it's like I'm in complete control. I can go up that building, I can go up those stairs. It's up to me, kind of thing. So it's a weird thing. That's the only way I could describe it, though.
I know exactly what you're talking about because a friend of mine, Dean, who plays a lot of first-person shooters, he doesn't play competitive because it stresses him out now. But he has the same thing with single-player first-person games. It's a weird one. I know what you're talking about. I think it's also the time you spend on it, and you have the way you move. Whereas in a multiplayer, you move it a certain way. The views are more snappy. Whereas with single player, maybe I don't know what it is. I don't have that, but I sympathize.
Yeah, it's rough sometimes. I miss out on good games, unfortunately, because of that. So, but I do what I can. So these third person, I go hard. I go hard on.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What do you think about the? What do you think about Exomecha, Luke? Have you had sight of it? Do you think it looks cool?
Yeah, no, I loved the most recent trailer. It is certainly appealing, and it looks really exciting. And perhaps through no fault of its own, I'm very hesitant of it because of my experience with Bright Memory and what we look forward to in Bright Memory Infinite, right? Bright Memory Infinite looks incredible. And Bright Memory is kind of like that little precursor $7 thing you can check out on your Xbox Series S and X. And I was very disappointed. And it has a similar style element to it, at least in my mind. Yeah, there's something intangible there. And so I think I'm a little bit less enthused than I otherwise would have been. And that is through no fault of Exomechas. That said, there was enough in that trailer to say that I'm interested and planning to buy it, play it, and experience it, barring any tepid reviews or something that goes very strongly against it. I love the vehicle sequences. Certainly the seeing the Megazords Transformers fight each other was cool. I liked the water effects, but then there were little elements like when that grenade's going off where it looks very indie in like those little segments there.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Certainly though, this is punching far above the weight of what I would mentally say is an indie game. And we'll see how it goes. But I am excited for it and planning at this moment to check it out.
Yeah, no, definitely. The best thing about this is it's on Game Pass. You don't have to actually spend any money. It's there for you to test and check out. Erica, have you subscribed to Xbox Game Pass?
I have a couple times. The $1 deals on especially PC. When Tactics came out, I got it.
Oh yeah.
When Ori 2 came out, I got it. It's mostly when certain games come out, it's like I'm on it,
Oh, so you're one who subscribes as the game comes out. That's perfect.
Yeah. Because
not like us lazy people. We just keep it on.
No, I'm very on top of it. Like once I'm through, they're about to renew my subscription. Like I'm logging in.
Yeah.
Get me out. Good. But I love Game Pass. It's great. It's a great service.
It is. I mean, in chat, if there's anyone who isn't subscribed to Game Pass, let us know in chat. Because I think if I asked everyone who, there would be most people would say they are. So I'll be interested to get your take on it. Asa, we watched this together, but I think you were mostly impressed with it, or you were impressed. I think certainly the what was it, the zip line, the hooking, the grappling hook.
Exomecha, yeah, Exomecha in particular. I'm very much with Luke on that one, in that what they're showing looks amazing and polished, but you get the impression that maybe once you scratch the surface, maybe it'll fall apart a little bit. But yeah, the grappling hook looks fun to use. The game, it's hard to say whether controlling those giant mechs is actually going to be fun, because if they are responsive, then how is how are you going to have a fun experience fighting against that? If they're not responsive, how are you going to have a fun experience playing as that? So we'll see how it all kind of, how that one falls when it comes out, but it looks really nice.
Yeah.
So
It does. I'm quite intrigued about the mech controls because they don't really show that much of that or any of it. They show you climbing on one of the mechs that bipedal on another. I don't know. We see more of it.
yeah, which is exactly the kind of thing. So when you say like it looks like there's great stuff in there in the trailer, but maybe if you scratch the surface, maybe, I mean, why aren't they showing somebody playing as that mech? What's going on there? Because it's strongly implied that those are players in them fighting each other.
Yeah,
It's going to be a fairly key gameplay element that they've kept right out of the gameplay trailer. So who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But it looks good. But yeah, let's wait and see. I know exactly what you mean, Luke, with that. Kind of being a little bit cautious with that, not getting overhyped with that. But one game that I think is just looking amazing, and it's not typically my kind of game, because isometric games up until Hades never really jived with me. But the Ascent to me just looks so sick because one, I love the cyberpunk setting, but everything about that game just visually looked like fun. The character design, to me, that looks, and to me, that's a steal. Like one of those games where I think, oh my god, I feel kind of guilty that this is coming on Game Pass. I'm not paying extra for it. This game looks sick. What do you think, Erica? Did you like what you saw with the Ascent?
I did. The co-op aspect of it. Co-op games are really kind of coming strong. I feel like this year we got a couple coming out. With pandemic happening the whole last year, it's really nice to be able to have these games. We could like play with friends and connect online, and it looks cool. Like the cyberpunk setting, I'm looking at it right now again, and it's beautiful looking game. It looks awesome in terms of the combat. The guns look great. It looks fun. Like I was very impressed with this game. Very.
Yeah, definitely. It might be the best cyberpunk game not even outside of cyberpunk now. It just looks really
it's I think that's safe to say.
yeah, it looks really good. The only thing that annoyed me was that we don't know when it's coming out. They didn't give a solid release date, but I don't maybe blame them with what's happening around the world, that people are a bit understandably reluctant to commit to hard dates. But what do you think about that, Luke? Did you think the set looks good?
Well, I'm thrilled by the Ascent. I am so excited to see what that game brings to it. I feel a bit silly because I feel like I'm one of the very few people that could not care less about the cyberpunk aesthetic. It's not a genre that I'm into in any way, shape, or form. Like, to have one of the flagship games of last year be named Cyberpunk, I was like, neat. I was like, cool. Like, I'm great for that. However, the gameplay in that looks incredible. The co-op elements, and I hate using another game to define it a second time in a row, but it reminds me a bit of what I experienced in Helldivers. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that game from PS3 and Vita and PS4. Very co-op shooter-esque. You drop in together. Weapons feel very heavy. This looks like it will feel very similar to that in some ways, but I love the co-op look. The color aesthetics are just gorgeous. I was in on this game day one anyway, without Game Pass even being a factor. And as far as the release date, I too am frustrated by how vague it is. However, this feels like one where they look like they're in polish mode, and the little hints sound like that, and perhaps they're waiting for and it's going to be out this week or during some sort of presentation. Colloquially, we might say E3, but whatever that variant of E3 is, I think that's when we will see the Ascent, as it were. And I don't think, very much like Exomecha, I don't think it's going to move the needle anywhere except in the goodwill, feel-good vibes of gamers, but I don't think it's going to sell astronomically or anything like that. But I'm there for it.
Yeah. No, I hope they do. I think you're right. They might drop it like that, like wait for it. It's coming out this week. They'll do an event for it. Maybe looking for the best time to release it as well, because timing of your release amongst this very saturated market is so fundamental for indie developers, especially. So yeah, that's a good point. CYV Studio, thanks so much for the $5 super chat. It says, after playing Yakuza Like a Dragon, I'm playing the whole series. What is the chronological order that you would recommend playing the whole series? I've never played it, although I think if I do get a bit stuck into it, I'll be really in the game. Do you guys know? Do you know, Erica?
I've played Yakuza 0 only. A great game. a lot of reading, but it's a great game.
lot of reading,
Every
okay.
time I see this question come up with people who do play Yakuza like that, they do say 0 is a good place to start. So I don't know if you want to take their word for it. It's not really my word, but I have heard that as a good starting point. I liked it. I felt like it was a good entry for me. So if that helps.
What
Yeah,
was it? What
I've heard
extent-
exactly the same. It's exactly that. So obviously, it's like the discussion you always have with Star Wars, because the prequels came out later. So should you play it in the order they released, or should you play it in chronological order for the story's sake? Most people do recommend, exactly like Erica said, start with 0, play through in order.
Okay, well there you go. I haven't played that yet. Have you played them, Issa? Have you played these?
I have played bits and pieces. I've not played much of the newest one, 7. I've played some of 0 and some of 1, but not actually completed either of them. So I'm not really an expert on the subject, but too late. I've already answered.
There we go. We give you wrong information so freely with confidence. No, but do check. But yeah, 0 seems like that's the place to start. Who checked Omno? I don't know. Omno's one that people might not. Or Art of Rally. That might be another one that I don't think people maybe stuck out on people's minds.
Yeah, the rally was the only trailer I didn't really like. Everything
Yeah.
else was good to me.
Yeah. Are you into like racing games or that just?
Like I played Forza Horizon 4, which I thought was really fun, really cool. I can get into them. It's just I don't play a lot. So yeah.
Omno's playing right now on screen. What? And if you haven't seen that, what do you guys think of that? Because that to me, Asa described it as, how was it, budget Everwild or something? But he just alluded to.
Which we
to the
don't
visual
actually. Hey, come on. We don't actually know if Everwild is even a budget title. It might even be a budget title itself. I mean, I liked Omno. I thought my dog's really excited about it.
Okay.
I liked Omno, if that's how you pronounce the name. Actually, I thought it looked really beautiful. It gave me Journey vibes, which I think the Xbox community has lacked, something that is in that realm. I don't think there's a great need for it, but I really liked what I saw there. I could see myself dedicating an afternoon, sitting down and just enjoying a tranquil, get a good cup of tea and just go through and enjoy this game. Because in my mind, it's a 3-4 hour game. Now I have no idea if it is, but it has that look that suggests it to me. And I find that as I looked at a lot of these trailers, because I did not put myself through, from what sounds like the torment of watching the showcase. I'm not.
It's just
Sounds
the
like it was
format
rough.
of it. It's just long interviews. You didn't.
That's what it sounded like, and which is a shame because I'm sure there were some good interviews.
Yeah, they're good. I'm sure they're great interviews, but we just couldn't. We tuned out for that. But yeah.
Right. Nonetheless, wherever I was headed with that was, I think a lot of games like this are going to appeal to very niche groups, but I could just really see myself having a good 3-4 hours with a game like Omno and just relaxing to it. It looks tranquil, which is a nice change of pace. And maybe I'm projecting, but based on the trailer, that's where I'm at with it.
Well, that's exactly where I'm at, but I don't think you're projecting at all. Maybe that's the vibe that the devs are going for. What about you, Erica? Did you like what you saw with them?
I do. The art style, it's a little artsy fartsy, as I call it. But I like those games. It kind of reminds me, like you said, Journey. It came to mind, especially the I guess like sliding through the desert. I don't know what they're on right there, but it's kind of like similar to that. Also, Rhyme comes to mind. I don't know if you guys played that game.
Oh, I know that.
Kind of similar art style, puzzle platformer kind of game. It's got kind of a mix of those two for me, and I liked both of those games. And yeah, maybe that is true. Like Xbox does need more of these kind of artsy fartsy. Like I feel like they do, and hopefully people will play them. These indies. I never underestimate indies. I love indies, and I know some people, like maybe casual type of gamers, they tend to just look for the triple A's, but indies are so good, and they can be very good, and they shined so much last gen. So I'm hoping this gen it just keeps on, and it's looking great. Just these trailers, man, they're nice. I like them.
Well, let me send a question to all three of you then, because I adore indies myself, much like you, and I think very often that Xbox does, at the moment, the best job at supporting indies right now, and perhaps the worst job at being able to spotlight it due to a couple little factors. ID at Xbox is, I think, not an appealing name that doesn't tell the tale to the casual fan that's uninformed. And quite separately, they've done so much work to get so many indies that it's hard to spotlight and, you know, give mind share to each individual one. I loved what I saw in the showcase breakdown about how much money developers have earned since the program's inception, how many titles they've been able to release, you know, over 2,000 indie titles into ID at Xbox. However, it's really hard to spotlight indies and give them the time of day next to some of the bigger titles. And I'm thinking to PlayStation's brilliant campaign at the beginning of the PS4, you know, We Heart Indies, and that was what carried the launch PS4. Xbox has done an incredible job over the last few years at bringing indies to the forefront. Game Pass is a great mechanism for that. But it's hard to give them spotlight. Meanwhile, games like Fall Guys or Among Us will live on other platforms with more perpetuity. And I don't know what the problem there is, but I wonder if you guys could comment. Am I off base in thinking that? Or am I making a problem? Or is there a visual problem that they have in spotlighting some of these great games that they do get?
Erica, what do you think about that? Do you think indies get enough exposure?
I think you're spot on, because like you said, with the PS4, indies really shined and carried that system at first. And PlayStation did a good job with marketing some of those indies. And maybe Xbox does need to do a better job of that. There's so many, like you said, there's so many that they have. How do they spotlight every single one to make it seem like they're a banger, you know? That's a good point. And that ID at Xbox name maybe needs to change. You got Nintendo with the Nindies, which is very clever, very catchy, I love that name. I mean, it's just the perfect name for them.
Yeah.
So maybe if they did something better with the name, maybe a shorter show, do it. This is the one thing I give Nintendo credit for with their directs. They're very short and sweet. They get through their games one right after the other. It's just boom, boom, boom. Xbox, they want to do these long interviews. They want to make people go to sleep. Like you guys, I didn't watch it, but I'm sure it was, you know, not so great. And it takes away, like it puts such a negative that people lose focus of what the games even are, and they don't even give it a chance, you know, and that's just too bad. It's not fair to those developers and those games. So yeah, they definitely need to make it better in terms of like marketing these games. I'm totally with you.
Yeah. What do you think, Asa? Do you think like there's quite very interesting questions here, like the naming convention of ID Xbox, and the Luke's alluded to the PlayStation 4's PS loves indies, which to me was just a surface level kind of thing to capitalize on the negative marketing against Xbox, which indies hated at the time for multiple reasons. But what do you think? What can Xbox do?
It's a very, very valid point, not just towards Xbox, but actually Steam in particular has struggled with this for years and years and years, for sheer volume of content and finding a fair way to make sure that people can discover the good ones. So it's not so much, I mean, Xbox are getting some of these a lot of coverage, PlayStation gets some of these a lot of coverage, and Nintendo gets some of these a lot of coverage, but the volume of content, there's no way to make sure that the good ones float to the top, and it's a perpetual battle that indie developers face every day. So Idea Xbox, I mean, in terms of the name of the program, I think it's probably quite a small circle of people that are even aware of what the name is.
Yeah.
Most people, if they really want these games to explode, it's more about presence on the storefront and actually just having them thrown in your face if you're a person browsing. At the same time, people always complain if they're seeing things that they're not interested in on the dashboard as well. So it's a really difficult balancing act. But
I'd like to see a campaign. I'm sorry, Ace, I cut you off.
Go for it.
I apologize. The lag got me. The ID, I believe, stands for independent developers at Xbox, right? But how many people would know that, right? How many people would think that through? Having a campaign to like break that down, a marketing campaign, I think would be very useful. And similarly, we used to have in the days of yore, Summer of Arcade, right? And that was a month long, I believe, maybe 5 weeks, 6 weeks, but they would spotlight a game each week. And now the sheer volume, to Ace's point, is just so grand that it's very hard to do that without aggravating some of your other developers. But they've got a mechanism where they could do, you know, game of the week on Game Pass that if it's not on Game Pass, it's free that week on Game Pass, or they could find ways, I suppose, to capitalize on things like Summer of Arcade and spotlighting and doing marketing campaigns where ID at Xbox is 100% broken down for people, ID, and then it's broken down independent developers at Xbox, something to let these people who I saw someone in chat mention that they'd been a subscriber for 13 years to Xbox Live. They'd never heard of the program. That's a problem. That's a big problem. He's probably, I'm sure he or she has played ID at Xbox games and has no way of knowing that, or does not know that. That needs to be fixed, because the program is great. Chris Charla is great. That community is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great community.
There's just not a lot of people there. And I'm going to derail ever so slightly one more time. There's a Mr. Bad Bit in chat. Honestly, one of the worst human beings you could ever know. And he's just the worst.
Joseph, stop making trouble in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
On what you were saying there, Luke, the other problem with people not necessarily recognizing that ID means indie is that's not necessarily bad, because for some people, indie it has a negative connotation. It means this is a low budget game and it's not what they're interested in. So in a sense, kind of putting that slight mask on it, like this is an ID game rather than an indie game, it kind of stops people from making that distinction. That was the problem they had when they used to have Xbox Live Arcade as a whole separate storefront. Loads and loads of indie games on there, and nobody went in there because that was the indie section. So they've done essentially a good thing by merging the stores. But then you've got, if you're looking for how to make an indie game blow up, and you look at, it's almost always on Steam where they really catch mega traction, like Valheim has at the moment. And then you've got really weird examples like Among Us that came out in 2018 and got ignored for 2 years, and it just caught fire. Nobody knows where it caught fire from. Twitch took it on. It's one of the biggest games around now. So it's I don't know, how do you capture that lightning? But
no, but so you pretend that we don't agree on a lot of things, but you and I, man, you're inside my nucleus, because that is exactly what I was going to say. The way with indies, and there is a negative connotation of the budget and all that stuff. My tact would be to do indies justice is to float them on the market like they are a AAA title. That just because I think they earned that right. And it's not like we're pandering to indies because there's one man dev and the whole thing. The quality for me in the game is great. These games, some of them are the most attractive looking games. The best way forward isn't to segregate them. Maybe. But I think that would be my tactic, Luke. It would just be just put it in there. Definitely promote it more. Promote, the Ascent are almost so good that barely, in my head, qualifies as an indie budget title. But stuff like Omno, for instance, put that in there. People see that, the casual market we're talking about, see that I'm sure they'll be wowed by how nice that game looks. So then there are loads like that. Others that, for instance, pixel art games, then they'll always have a connotation, even in the minds of casuals, that, oh, what's this? This is a old Atari-looking game, that kind of mindset. But and it's a very good question, Luke, and I think it's an interesting challenge, and the spirit of it wasn't even in my list of topics, but I'm glad you asked that question.
Good question, for sure.
Definitely a good question. Thanks, guys. Song of Iron, man. That game is being developed by one very incredible, talented ex-dev, I think, of a big AAA title. I'm not sure. But yeah, Erica, that looks sick.
Shoot, I saw the title of this name in the trailer. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the game I've had in my Steam wish list for ever. I don't even remember how I first caught wind of it. I saw it on Twitter or something. I went straight to Steam, put it in my wish list, and I was like, I'm gonna watch this game because it looked incredible. The art style, it's kind of like a Norse mythology type, right? It's kind of got that kind of, I think, thing going on.
I think it looks like it.
Yeah.
And I love that. The aesthetics, the combat, the 2D, but it looks kind of 3D at the same time, the different depths of view on this, and it just looks incredible. The lighting, I'm very big into aesthetics and pleasing looking games, and this is one of them. I've been like I said, it's been in my wish list. I can't wait for this game.
Yeah, I mean, talk about making you feel inadequate as a human being. That one guy who has not only developed the game with great looking mechanics, has also nailed the art style of it, and hopefully he nails the gameplay mechanics of it, because this game is incredible. For one person to do that is incredible. What do you think about this, Luke? Dude, this game. So watching it now, I'm kind of getting distracted by.
I too.
Yeah.
Right with you. I was the same thing, and I apologize. I was fading into that. The game looks beautiful. It looks fun. It reminds me a bit of the 2D Arkham levels from Arkham City. There were a few, downloadable 2D game levels like that. I really like what I see from Song of Iron, and it's also making a lot of rounds. It seems to have amassed more attention than most indies have, like the Ascent and Second Extinction as well. I'm excited to see where it goes. However, what the scuttlebutt that I hear is that it's going to be very difficult. People are equating it to Dark Souls. Is that true or just hearsay? Am I just misinformed?
I've not heard that before, but I don't know.
Maybe it's the art style then. But if it is that difficult or requiring that level of attention, I probably won't be able to keep attention for that long. But again, I may be misinformed. It just might be the art style that's lending itself towards that particular perception.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you don't like? Yeah,
I've never heard the expression scuttlebutt before. Is that what you said?
It is, yeah. Scuttlebutt, yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna start using that from now on.
It's a good word. It's fun.
That can be Gaz's role in our business. Gaz is the scuttlebutt. Sounds about right.
It's like the ether and the rumor mill and such.
You know what it is? You know what it is with this whole Souls comparison? I notice when it comes to certain games, and I've done this too. I've been guilty of this. Anytime you have like shield and you're parrying, you're dodging and rolling through, I think people just make that connection of like, oh, that's like Souls. And you got to be, patient. You got to know when there's an opening, and you got to know when to parry. And I think I could see why they would think that, but I don't know for sure if that's really what's happening in this game. It could just be how it looks,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll be intrigued. I have no idea about that.
Yeah.
Gaz was caught by a bug by God Asa. Thank you, Tony, for that amazing comment. Asa, what do you think about Scuttlebutt? No, sorry, Song of Iron.
I mean, like everyone that's just seen that trailer or already seen it, it looks amazing. It's a really nice story as well. The developer Joe is quite active in not the story of the game, the story of the developer. He's quite active in Twitter communities and things, and seems like a thoroughly nice guy. But he, like you say, he was at a AAA studio. I don't know which one. I don't know what games he was working on. He had Song of Iron that he was developing like in his evenings, in his spare time. Got to a point where actually it was coming along really nicely, and he took the plunge and decided to leave his safe job to pour himself into Song of Iron. So you hope that it works out. You hope that it works out.
Sure
it's one of those things when people talk about the whole Twitch thing, the Xbox show that they had on Twitch that went on for 4 hours, and they had these interviews with the developers. I don't think Joe was one of those, but the idea of it is that when you get to know the people making these games, the game is more endearing, and it's a very good idea. I mean, they shouldn't have put the interviews in that format, but the idea of like getting to know the people behind them adds something to the game, and Song of Iron is just doing that organically. So
that's a really good point, and would love to get him on the show to understand that. That's how you should do it, really market it. But how do you create organic growth? Just do it organically and let it happen. I really would love to we should get him on the show, just if he will come on, get an idea of his journey. That'd be amazing, man. There are other games, so I'm conscious of the time, but quickly, shout outs from me. Where I loved Loot River. That was like a weird like pixel bit game, but it's like mixed Tetris with like combat. That game looks sick. I had Narita Boy, looked sick. Death's Door was interesting. Lost Oasis looked like something incredible, but it's already out. Erica, did you jive with any of these games, or were there any games I haven't mentioned that you really think were good?
The last one you mentioned, I'm not sure I've seen that one, but the others, hell yes. Like I am really digging Loot River. When I started seeing how the different platforms were being able to move, and you do that in order to like take out these enemies or completely get away, I just thought that was really awesome. That game does look difficult though. That one.
Yeah, that game looks sick. It's not
It
one
looks
for Luke.
awesome. It looks awesome. Very different. I don't think I've ever played a game like that where I was like really moving around the platforms and like, at least not that I can remember. Death's Door looks amazing too. That's the one by Devolver, right? I
Yeah,
believe.
they're churning out so many games. It's ridiculous.
They're so good. Like, but it was like this crow, and I'm like, okay, it's maybe gonna be like some kind of story kind of game. And then once it started like doing combat, I was like, I need this game. The game looks
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, and I think that's the two that I really what was it called?
I think what's it, Narita Boy?
That one looks awesome as well.
Yeah,
like
the soundtrack, though.
aesthetically, the soundtrack. Like I'm loving these games. I was really impressed. Like, wow, Xbox got some bangers looking. It's looking like it. But again, can they let people know that? That's the question. If they can, word of mouth can spread for these games, and I hope it does. I hope these developers get their shine. I really do.
I absolutely do. Look, you've kind of steered the conversation in a really kind of productive and positive way. I want to kind of latch on to that point about that exposure. So the title of this stream is Xbox Gets Even More Games, PlayStation the Sleeping Giant, and Nintendo Pro and coming there. So obviously you will know who's creating the titles to these. Me, the Flamebait Master. But I do think there's a point there. Xbox is getting a lot of games now. Like these indie titles, you shouldn't separate them from the other thing. Is a narrative. I think previously last gen was justified, but now does no longer apply. Is that the case, or does Xbox still have to prove its worth in terms of its games output? What do you think?
Xbox has a lot to prove and will have a lot to prove for a long time. And that is not based on the last 3-4 years. It's based on the way they launched the Xbox One. And that stigma has stuck with them for a long time. It was genuinely a disaster. And the fact that they recovered in the way that they did is rough for them and impressive for them and great for us, because they doubled down on gaming. And we are getting a lot of titles, and we are getting better hardware. We are getting more valuable subscription services, and we tend to hang our hat on that. And the aforementioned Mr. Badbit, who I cannot stand, was talking to me. We were chatting this morning about how it's almost exhausting to listen to an Xbox podcast or a podcast that their beat is Xbox, similar to mine, or if you were to dive further into the fanboy realm of people that just are very enthusiastic about it. Game Pass consistently is the narrative. You go on a PlayStation side, you will hear God of War, you'll hear Spider-Man, you'll hear Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon. And it's because those are the narratives that each of them can hang their hat on. Right now, Microsoft must lean on their Game Pass narrative. And then by default, secondary to that is we've got tons of games, because they must combat the mentality that what they have is slim pickings. Because the reality is they've always had games, but they didn't have the heavy hitters to compete with those big giants. And that narrative will stay with them until Hellblade 2 comes out and gets 9s and 10s. And if it doesn't, or if Halo Infinite disappoints, and I mean critically, it disappoints critically, because that will flame a meme war for people that care about those things, the Gazas of the world, I don't know, whatever. That narrative will stick with them for a very long time. Any Xbox gamer will realize, of course, it's a false narrative, but you have to get into the ecosystem to know that, and that's the barrier to entry, right? That's the barrier to entry. And it's a metaphor. I mean, it's an analogy we could make back to our Gears conversation at the top of the show. Once you're in, you're in, but getting in can be very difficult. And that's why you see PlayStation Now for $1, Game Pass for $1. They want you into their ecosystem to realize that what they have is fantastic. And that's all of the giants, or the big three, have fantastic offerings, but those narratives will stick with them for a long time, because we live in an age that doesn't want to forget, and they want to be justified in their purchase. And part of that's understandable. Part of it is a little childish, I think.
Yeah, no, you nailed that. That's absolutely, you're spot on there. It's a multifaceted kind of issue, and it's like you said, there are different crowds hanging their hats on what they can. And even the trolls like me recognize that. I just want to quickly read a super chat. Hustle Motivate. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Hello to you too. Games Lord with the HRK 10. I need to find out what currency that is. Not that it matters, but I can see your name and I've always seen you on here. Thank you so much again for that super chat. Xbox Developers Mode is cool. Play games for PS2, N64. I think that says Dreamcast, etc. Oh yeah, Dreamcast, etc. I haven't activated.
Classic.
Yeah, Dreamcast was the one. That was the one. Astria Ascending looks lit, says Faisal. Thank you so much for the £2 super chat. Astria Ascending. What is
It's the
that?
Final Fantasy like one.
Oh yeah.
2D,
The one with the it's weird. Proportioned woman.
Is that the better looking Octopath Traveler one? That's anecdotal.
Very
what I heard.
similar.
Is that
At least color palette, very similar. Yeah.
okay? Gotcha.
Yeah. Asa, what was anything outstanding for you?
I'm playing the Lawnmower trailer right now.
God. Well, I thought it was a joke. So the start is joke, and then the name comes out Lawnmower Simulator, and I couldn't believe it. Why does this exist? Who is actually going to play it?
Oh no, there's a market. Jeff Grubb will play it. There's a massive market for PC play. That's not even an insult. Like I would never insult Jeff. He's a nice guy, right? But he plays those like the off-road simulators where you're just driving a car up some cliffs and stuff. There's a massive audience for more gentle games like that on the PC. You've got Train Simulator and Farming Simulator. These are not
Does
small
he play
games.
these games?
You have
Does
to
Jeff
ask
play
him
these
directly. You go and ask Jeff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. The truck simulators have massive views on thing, and it's just a guy. And then I'm like, this is so stupid. Why are people watching this? And then I end up watching it for ages. They're on my phone just because I'm intrigued by this guy. It's a really chill moment, just sitting there with a trucker. What is happening with my life right now? Is what I question. But
Sometimes. I'm sorry, I did it again.
Yeah, no, go for it. Sometimes not. I need to. No, don't worry about it. What do you think that is?
Sometimes there is a hyper complexity to a lot of the games that we play. It's got to have super deep mechanics, super deep elements, and that's a time sink.
Yeah.
Honestly, one of the reasons I like to swim in sevens, as it were, in terms of the Metacritic realm, but also I love playing old games because they're simple. And sometimes simple is what I want at the end of my workday. I'm teaching middle schoolers all day. I'm exhausted. I don't want to get wrecked by God's gift to Gears or Destiny or whatever it is. I just want to play a simple game.
Just want to
And
sit on a lawnmower.
sometimes that's right. That's right. What could be better than sitting on a lawnmower but not having to deal with pollen season? You tell me.
Oh, you're gonna hate me. Yeah, agreed.
No, that is true though. There's sometimes you just want to chill. Like for me, City Skylines is like a game I go to and I'll just start like building a new town, a new city, and there I am 7 hours later or something crazy, and I'm like, oh shoot, like the whole day's gone. It's just there's a market for everything, and especially if it's on PC, like you'll get those kinds of gamers on there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the PC they dabble into all kind of that. I think PC crowd makes less of a distinction about indie titles and big AAAs than the console crowd. Do you agree?
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that is the case because I find myself and the big reason why that is I do personally is because I see the game on the game stores. They kind of mix them in together, and I just feel like that's what, or maybe the legacy in PC is like that. But yeah. I want to touch upon something Asa wanted me to mention, which me and him were quite intrigued about as the show was happening, which was the AI technology in Hello Neighbor 2. That may be a weird topic to bring up, but I want to get your topic on this because your viewpoint, on this, because AI is something, in my opinion, has been very difficult to, I guess, tackle, but at the same time, madly neglected. And what Hello Neighbor 2 is doing seems to be birthing Skynet 2.0 or whatever. It looks really impressive. And I just wanted to get your take. Luke, did you have a chance to look at what they were doing in Hello Neighbor 2 in this?
No,
trailer?
I mean, I saw the trailer, but I do not understand. I would love some background. Yeah,
so for background, so what they're doing with Hello Neighbor is essentially when you're playing the game, it's uploading your data, and the antagonist gets more intelligent based on how players are playing. So the example that they've got is maybe on playthrough, like the first player to go through this mission can go and hide in a wardrobe and it'll be fine. If enough players are going to hide in that wardrobe, then the neighbor's going to learn and they're going to start looking in the wardrobe to see if a player is hiding there. And it's progressively building this enemy AI. But it's a kind of broader question because AI is something that like Gaz frequently uses it as something that he wants to see better. A lot of people now have got these like decent processors in these consoles at last. AI has been stagnant for a lot of years, and people want to see improvement in that area. But it raises the question of what that actually means, and that's what I wanted to drill into a little bit more. Like, what does good AI look like to you? Does that give you enough to go on, Luke?
It does. It does give me enough to start off, and then I'll pass it over to Eric.
Go for it.
We'll tag team it then.
There you go. AI evolution is something that I think is going to pave the way for what next generation actually is, what these processors, what these systems are actually going to do, far more than visuals will. And I've yet to experience a moment that was cooler in terms of AI than when I played Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation 1. That there was a revelatory moment where I knocked on a wall and tricked an enemy into moving around, and the AI reacted to things. I've not had another revelatory moment. So if, we start to see things like Hello Neighbor 2 where they're learning and doing far more than what I'm aware of and giving me those revelatory moments, I'm going to be thrilled with it. But I think it's something you have to feel versus see. And you have to experience it before you can truly understand it. And maybe that's just my amateur brain, but I don't understand just yet. Like I'm not quite there in terms of connecting the dots in a way that allows me to appreciate it yet. And maybe that's just me. But I think I need experiences hands-on with it to have those special moments. Erica.
I agree with that as far as you do kind of have to feel it. And on paper, what you're describing with this game, it sounds awesome. I mean, if you're doing something particularly in a video game, let's say you're making a habit of hiding in water or hiding behind walls or whatever you're doing, and if they catch on to that and adjust to you, that sounds incredible. But I don't know how good that's going to work or not. But yeah, I think when it comes to next gen, we're getting to the point where graphics look amazing. The physics can be amazing. Sometimes they forget the physics because the graphics are so important these days. But yeah, I think to truly feel that maybe next gen jump, you would have those moments of oh shoot, that enemy just turned the whole game around on me, and how did that happen? Or how did he know I was here? Or how was he smart to know this? Or I'm always impressed by AI if it happens, and I haven't had it to the point of that where I felt like they truly worked off what I was doing, but I have had moments in games where it's the enemies did just play better, because when they don't, it's so noticeable. I was just playing Miles Morales. I just beat it, and the combat is awesome. It's so fun, so satisfying, but there are times the enemies are just standing there. They don't know I'm there. They're not adjusting to me. And I think if it just had that little boost of they were truly learning from what I was doing, it's Spider-Man. Come on. There's times I'd be in the ceiling and they're just where is he at? They're not looking up. They see their friends going up with webs and they just don't think to look up. And I'm like, these guys, come on, man. But if they did that, hey, our friend just got taken, now we know to look up. It's that's one little detail that I think would enhance the experience. And then it would make me have to adjust. Okay, I can't necessarily do that anymore. I can't spam that anymore. I can't cheese it anymore. I think that's really cool, and that would definitely enhance gaming and just in general.
I nailed it.
I want to take that. So your example there for Spider-Man was really good, because you're talking about enemies that display a complete lack of AI, kind of break immersion there. And for me, that's what AI needs to shoot for, is illusion rather than intelligence. Because if you have the Hello Neighbor's got an obvious conclusion that we can all see. 100 players are going to play, he's going to start catching people in the cupboard. 1,000 players are going to play, he's going to start catching everyone. 10,000 players play, it's going to realize that actually to protect its house it needs to eliminate the human race. Many more players play, it's the end of everything. So this is really dangerous. But more seriously though, with AI and intelligent opponents, you talk about a Call of Duty or something where you're one player running through, players want to win. So you don't want your opponents to be as clever as people and to act like people do, or you won't be winning anymore, and it won't be fun anymore. You want the illusion to be so good that when you're running around in The Last of Us Part 2, and Dina's standing in front of your line of sight where you're trying to shoot a zombie, and you're like, I'm going to die because the AI is ridiculous. that's what you need to break with AI. So they need to work really hard on the illusion of keeping AI characters where they need to be, making them convincing as opponents, but not actually making them clever, or games are going to be too hard.
Yeah,
So it's really tricky.
that's true. That is true. Yeah, that is tricky now that I think about it.
That's a sick point. Making them the illusion of it, because the illusion is, see, one of the big for me. Like I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, which is a great game, but I was doing a mission, and the game doesn't clock your hostages that you're escorting. So I have a case. I've recorded it. I should post it up. They're supposed to be hiding, but they're bumping into the enemies, literally, and the enemy actually bumps into the thing, moves away because it's collided with the enemy, and it's just like that immersion breaking thing, like you mentioned, Erica, with the spider. They're looking for it. It's to me that is. When you asked the question, Asa, I immediately thought of that one moment, which I think was a bug in the game, because I tried to replicate it in Halo so many times. It was the first Halo game. The AI in that really impressed me. And then one time I played, I think it was the Anniversary Edition, I threw a grenade, and the Elite, I think it was a bug, and I haven't been able to replicate this before, just follow the grenade like this. And I was just like, wait, I've never seen that do that. And he's just like, and he stopped walking. I was like, what? And it hit him. I was like, that little moment there, that him just following the nade, just like, that was crazy. It's the illusion of it. There's so much to do there. For me, it bugs me to the point where, like, I was like, I kind of like create my own narrative in my head for a game that's already trying to create its own narrative. Oh, I'm a lone ninja in here. Maybe he did see me, but maybe he's got cataracts in his eyes or something like that. I just find myself doing that, which is why I'm more multiplayer centric.
Halo's another, you've done it again, guys. That's another really good example, because that first Halo game, that was the first one that impressed me with AI as well, because the way that those elites, they had a similar ability set to your main character, to the chief, but you threw that grenade and they did look at it, and they typically tried to roll away from it, and it was enough that but it was very much an illusion, because the game was only capable of giving that level of intelligence to maybe 2 characters at a time, and the rest of them were just like drawing on the battlefield. But the illusion was good, and AI was impressive, and over time it's not changed much since that first Halo. But
yeah, it hasn't. That's the thing. I always go back to that Halo and I ask myself, has that game changed? And I can't think of a single game that has taken it further. I'm still going back to that grenade Halo 1 moment. So hopefully that changes.
I wonder if it really is just kind of what I was saying about like just graphics being such the priority with some of these games, that they want all the bells and whistles of how mind-blowing it could look, but the physics and the details and sometimes that could be missed because deadlines, or they just don't have the budget, or they just don't want to do it,
I think you're right.
Oftentimes they literally don't have the CPU budget, because games are still made, still now, they're still made for the previous gen consoles that had these terrible processors at the heart of them. So this is why it's such an interesting topic right now, because it's something that can change over the next few years. But
well, I think also AI doesn't sell games. It doesn't sell games, graphics do, thumbnails do, images
loud
do.
Things, loud noises.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I think it's the case of priorities, but you're right, Erica. It's just that priority needs to change. Maybe it's CPU budget. Maybe it is all that the loud noise is not selling it, but it just needs to happen. And physics as well, like hair physics, proper liquid physics, not easy to do. A CPU budget again, maybe the reason why, but I'd love to see that. That's what I want in next gen, not just shiny, super shiny, realistic things. Which is kind of ironic because ray tracing is such a big thing in this gen. So tends to mean shiny things, but it can mean more than that. Asa, I know you're going to correct me.
I'm not going to say anything. You have your puddle.
Oh God, Asa, you always make me feel like an idiot. But I'm going to go. I'm just conscious of the time. It's been really organic, really good chat. But I might just skip on. I had a couple of topics on Returnal going gold. It's gone gold. I can't really talk about it. I'm looking forward to that game, but I'm sure you guys are as well. But final topic, which is the meat of it. Xbox is purchasing Discord. It's happening, guys. Apparently, where there's smoke, there's fire. And there are reports that the deal could be completed as soon as next month. And they're talking about how Phil Spencer was reported to be involved with the negotiations after Discord approached Microsoft about it. Say, hey, you're opening your wallet here. How about us? But I want to ask you about the implications of that. To me, that's a big thing for a multitude of reasons, but this is about you, not me. So, Erica, what do you think One, do you think it's going to happen? Two, would it be a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm torn on if it's happening or not. I'm hearing both. It is, then it isn't. It's kind of just rumor, So until it does, then okay, it's happening. But if it does, the first reaction I had was like, wow, this is huge for Microsoft. Like this is a big thing. But then people quickly reminded me about Skype. They quickly reminded me about Mixer and things like that, where it has this big deal at first and then it just kind of falls apart. And Microsoft, I think, just has that reputation of like, they take over, they change the fundamentals and things going on, what made those things great, and then they ruin it. And so a lot of people are worried, and I don't blame them. I love Discord. I use it all the time. I'm on it almost every day with streaming and talking with friends and stuff, and it's great. I like it. So I would hate for it to be ruined, and I hope that doesn't happen. So I'm kind of torn. Like if it doesn't happen, I'd be kind of relieved. But then if it does, I'm just gonna like hope for the best and hope it stays true to what it is, because I don't want it to change. But it should be on consoles. I hope that's, I guess, the most of it. Like they will purchase it and then put it on consoles. That way I can talk to people who are on consoles, because there's always that thing, like we're gonna play a game, cross-play. Oh, I don't have Discord. Like shoot, because it's such a pain to stream and have the party chat come through and Discord. So I'd rather them have Discord. I think that'd be awesome. But if I just want it to stay good, just stay good, stay the same. Yeah,
yeah. 100% same experience with me.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Luke? Do you use Discord?
I do not like Discord, and I'm one of the 6 or 7 people that doesn't.
Really? Why? I'm curious.
Too many notifications. If I could just clear all those red ones and just there was a way to do it, and I cannot figure it out. And it's always in the background on my PC, and it drives me nuts. But I'm in the minority, and I'm well aware that I am in the minority there. I'm just being an old man, and I get that. If it's Xbox doing this, I'm all in. Dope. Take that tech, make it good. If it's Microsoft, all my red flags go off because of Skype and Mixer and several others. And I used to stream on Mixer. I loved the technology. I still use Skype because I'm one of the 6 or 7 people that like Skype. But there's a lot to be gained from getting an infrastructure like Discord, from being able to link Game Pass perks more easily within there, to getting Nitro to Game Pass subscribers. The amount of promotion and the reach of something like that is a massive amount of potential. And for sure, in my mind, that 10 billion that they would spend on Discord is a very different pot of money that would be like used for studio acquisitions, as it were. It's not the same pot that bought Bethesda, in my mind.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe elements of it, but I think it would be a very good get for Microsoft. But it does red flag a little bit for me. I think one of the reasons Discord is so appealing is that it allowed for you to play and talk with your friends regardless of what platform, regardless of where you were, what device you were on, how you operated. And that's less of a concern, to Erica's point, as crossplay is more prolific. I play games every day with somebody who's on their PS5 almost religiously, and I'm on my Xbox Series X, and that's awesome. And we don't think anything of it, right? But Discord has really made itself be this central hub for podcasters, content creators, people that do want to crossplay or cross speak when the ability is not there in game. For goodness sakes, like Monster Hunter Rise, I believe, has no voice chat whatsoever, and they're like, hey, go use Discord or go use whatever program you've got. So there is value in these things, but I do red flag on it a little bit. It does scare me just a bit, if I'm being honest with you. And I'm supposed to be excited when I see Microsoft and acquisitions, and I don't know, maybe I'm an old man yelling at a cloud.
Yeah, but the precedent is there. Issa, KS in chat says the Skype and Mixer comparisons aren't fair. Skype is from a completely different Microsoft, different leadership. Do you have any concerns with Microsoft acquiring Discord? I think me and you would be happy, because anytime we play people on console, I just get on Discord, man, because Xbox Live party chat sucks. So it's just like on PC anyway, because we're all primarily on PC sometimes. So what do you think?
It's an interesting one, because I'm the same as you in that the primary kind of value for me personally in Discord is that it's reliable and good quality audio, and Xbox Live Party Chat is neither of those things. But Discord is built on an open source audio codec, so it seems strange to spend 10 billion when, for me at least, and this is purely selfish reasonings, the core value is the quality of the audio, and it's built on an open source codec. Microsoft have Skype and whoever knows, like a ton of engineers. You think it wouldn't be beyond reasonable to say go and improve Xbox Live Party Chat. And if they brought the audio quality of Xbox Live Party Chat up to where Discord is, I'd probably use it on PC. I don't find Discord that welcoming an interface to use.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to use Xbox Live Party Chat if it worked and sounded good.
Yeah.
So it's a strange one. It's 10 billion for something that you'd think they could just take away and do. But Discord, obviously, the value isn't in that free audio codec. The value that they're seeing is going to be in brand recognition, in the fact that everybody uses it, and the fact that it's just recognized everywhere and people are on it. And it's also Discord have historically had quite a lot of trouble figuring out how to monetize their platform, because it's good if you don't pay anything. Discord works well. You can pay for Nitro, you can get better quality audio, various things like that aren't necessary for most people. And they tried a storefront. They tried to rival Steam. That was going to be their big thing, and that's, as far as I know, that's completely gone now. It just didn't take off. So they've had a hard time with that, and the acquisition definitely makes a lot of sense from their perspective. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. It could go either way, which I say too often on big topics, but it's hard for me to see why.
Though. I was thinking the same thing. Why would they? But then it makes sense that they approached Microsoft for our gamers' perspective, just having the better voice quality. But then again, you spend so much money, and if it's open source, surely they can replicate that.
So I say open source. It was built off of an open source codec. They've done work in the years since, so there could be things in there that are proprietary to Discord now. But it was like their kind of origin story. They were a game developer that looked around in the PC space. They looked at the likes of Mumble and TeamSpeak and things like that, and went, these are a bit resource heavy. Let's do something really lightweight for people that are playing our game. And their game kind of flopped, and Discord went boom. So it was an accident in a sense. They just wanted a lightweight audio client, but they have built on it over the years into what it is now, which is by far and away. I mean, you look at the Discord, the number of people, their metrics are phenomenal. So
that'll be interesting. So I think we touched on the topic. I was going to ask if anyone thinks the Nintendo Switch Pro is coming, but it's all speculation. Do you think it's coming, Erica, very quickly on that point?
Yeah, it's looking like it. I was a little skeptical at first because Nintendo, a Pro could mean just a longer battery life or something minor, kind of like similar to the 3DS where they had the different iterations, and it would still be the Switch, but it would just be a little bit more bigger or something. But now I guess it's going to have like a better screen. It's going to possibly be bigger in that way. But as far as the games and stuff, I mean, the rumors are that like AAA multiplats, things like that, are only going to be on this new Switch because it can handle it. The old Switch can't. So there's talks of that, people upset or happy about that. I mean, it makes sense. And that would give me more hope and confidence that it would be a Pro type because it would have these games on it. It would obviously be powerful enough to have them. And if that's all true, then I'm with it. I mean, I have the original Switch, not in my possession. I kind of gave it away. I haven't really played on it. It's just been kind of collecting dust. So I'm just looking for anything really to like get me back on. I need that Metroid. I need that new Zelda. I those big games. If they could really push that power and have a difference, I'm with it. But I mean, I'm going off tangent. But to answer your question, yes, I do think it's coming now. At least something. Even if it's a minor thing, they're going to do something with it. Yeah,
I think so too. I think this year there'll be something. It's a really interesting point you touched upon about the power thing. It's a bit of a quandary. Like, what do you do? Do you just make it, HD 1080, I don't know, 4K, whatever version of the console, or do you make it so that it runs multi-plats, which would be, in my opinion, the better thing to do. Luke, what do you expect the Switch Pro to come out today to be revealed this year? What do you think the console will actually be?
If it's happening it is happening this year. and provided they can get the parts, and a ship
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
block the Suez Canal much longer. There's like 6, yeah. The biggest issue is how much do people like us want it? Like, is this a new 3DS XL thing where it's just the new 3DS or whatnot? Because if that's the case, then I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
If it's not happening this year, then whatever it is will likely be the successor to the Switch, and those are different things. The new Nintendo Switch is a very different thing than Switch 2. I have little interest because my Switch very quickly became outdated in the Xbox One generation, and it came, and especially against the Series X and the PS5. So I'm low interest level because they have a history of making these small iterative things and then not supporting them well. How many games needed the new 3DS? Like 3?
I think
6,
3,
7?
something
Yeah,
like that.
it's very low. And one of them was Hyrule Warriors, which is a console port. Sort of. There's not a lot of precedent for Nintendo to do a good job on supporting it with special software if it's iterative. But their hardware is always well made, and it does a fairly good job, save for some Joy-Con drift in recent years. I would look forward more to a successor as opposed to an iteration. It's just my interest level.
I'll be the same. I'm exactly the same. I hope they do
I'm
that.
with you.
But yeah, this is the first time I heard about this thing that you mentioned, Erica, about them just actually running multi-plats only on this new Pro. I always thought
It's
how are they
a
gonna do it?
rumor, it's one of those things where they're like, it's gonna be so powerful that it will run, the next Call of Duty or something like that. But it's Nintendo. I never know with them. It's hard to like put any kind of trust. I have trust issues with Nintendo. I definitely do. I mean,
Definitely have the same.
yeah. So, but I grew up on them. I'm always gonna look for the next, big game that they come out with. And the Switch is a cool device. I like cozying up on the couch just with the handheld, and I like it. It's a great experience. But the game's just gotta be there. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I agree with you there as well. I think a lot of core gamers will want that as well. But the mainstream are different. But what do you think, Asa? What do you expect? Do you expect it's going to be revealed this year?
Yeah, I think they probably will. It kind of matches their like typical hardware cadence in terms of it's been a couple of years since they did anything. For me personally, I want them to call it the Switch Hefty. So they've got a Switch Lite, which is just portable. I want a hefty Switch that doesn't care about portable and gives you a better experience on your TV like the other consoles do.
That got me. I don't know why it got me.
I think they'd be absolutely mad to actually have a separation in the catalog from the Switch right now, because the Switch is still on such an upward trajectory that they'd be absolutely mad to say like you can only get these multi-platform games or even some exclusives. You can only get certain games on the Switch Hefty, which don't care. That's what it's called.
Hefty.
But yeah, they're going to do something.
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's lots of rumors of like DLSS upscaling. There's fairly solid rumors that it is going to have its own little OLED screen, so it will still be portable. But the only bit that I care about is give me a nicer picture on my telly. So I only care about what I care about,
I mean, that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. 4K on the dock. That's what they're saying. So never know.
Yeah, so I don't use it in dock mode. I only use it on I'm the opposite of you there, Asa. But
I am too.
yeah, I don't use it for that purpose. I just like lay it there, just like doing a phone or watch Netflix.
At the moment, I pretty much don't use it at all because I don't play mobile. I don't play anything like away from a screen. So that's why I want the Switch Hefty. At the moment, I don't play the Switch at all because, I mean, very rarely. I played the Fire Emblem game because it just wouldn't do without something like that for myself. But I'd play a lot more games on it if they just looked that bit extra, which is silly. Like, I'd play an old game that doesn't look that great, but I just want a little bit more out of the Switch. So
yeah, it's old tech. It was old when it came out in terms of its raw specs. We're not wrong there. So guys, Tony uses it for toilet gaming. You do not know how accurate that is. Everyone, thank you so much. Smash that like button if you haven't already. We are going to end it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, we have to give these lovely gents the lovely guests, ladies and gentlemen, their outros. I know Luke,
watching Gaz stumble over that was the best.
You're gonna see me stumble a lot more because that's just me and my nature. But I'm stumbling right now as I'm trying. What was I doing? Yeah, that's what I was doing. Outros. Thank you very much. Yeah, my ADHD is severe. Luke, I know you have strict deadlines, but we've also gone past our 1.5 hour sweet spot because we've been talking. It's been lovely chat talking about Gears. I actually wanted to see if I could segue into it, but it went so naturally. You guys guided the chat there. That's really good. Really good.
We're content creators, it just kind of happens.
It happens.
Kind of flows.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it flew really well. No, it really did flow well. And thanks, Luke. Your takes are always great, and also very important points raised here, especially about I think it's a point in the spirit of indie titles, their discoverability and doing them justice. So thank you so much for steering that way. Where can people find you, sir, other than just fighting and quarreling with Mr. Badbit in DM? So
He's just the worst, and I think we all need to remember that. No, for anybody that doesn't know, that is clearly a bit. He's my buddy.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at Insipid Ghost and on all podcast services, including YouTube. I host the Xbox Expansion Pass, which is a solo show in which I try to expand my knowledge on the gaming ecosystem as it pertains to Xbox. I have various guests on, developers, content creators, publishers, and whatnot. My most recent episode, Jeff Grubb was kind enough to join me and shed some light on a couple different topics, which was really enjoyable. I also recently am part of a newly launched show called the Cast Co-op, hosted by Seasoned Gaming, in which myself, Ainsley Bowden, Portia Power, and Mr. Badbit discussed the ongoing elements of the big three in gaming, as it were. And most recently, our first episode was about how each of the big three message to their customers, their gamers, their consumers, and what they do well and very much not well on that topic. So I would love for you guys to check out that for sure.
Definitely.
So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, man. It's always a pleasure, and I definitely will check that out because I've got a video on that topic, nowhere near as nuanced and eloquent as that discussion will be, because it's just dripping in sauce. You'll see it when you watch the video. I apologize in advance to all my viewers, but the people who are the purveyors of sauce, you're gonna love it. Erica, it's been an absolute pleasure. Honestly, we have to have you back on again. It's been
Thank you.
Effortless chat.
It was fun. Yeah, thank you.
And shout out to one bad mother who recommended you to me, because I was just like, I need to get she's like, oh, she's really cool. Checked your gameplays.
Yeah,
it was so
shout
good.
out to him.
Shout out to him, honestly. Thank you so much. He's a great guy. But Erica, tell people, where can people find you?
Yeah, I go by Ericuts for the win. I don't know if you're gonna have it like in the description or anything. That's my name everywhere. So you look me up on YouTube. I run a
description. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I run a podcast every other Saturday, so not today, but next Saturday. It's called The Backlog with Erica and Shar. It's a two-person podcast, and we talk games, we talk everything really. We kind of go out of the box a little bit. We've actually been doing brackets because it's March Madness kind of thing.
Oh.
Brackets for the hottest female video game character, and then now we're gonna do the male character next week. So we do some silly things over there. We do some fun stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, so it'd be awesome if you guys, everybody listening can check it out. And you could also find me on Twitch, hanging out with the troubleshooters. That's kind of our little stream team. We play Gears, we play Rogue. We get our butts kicked, but we play Rogue. We played Fall Guys last night. Just multiplayer games, and I stream on my own as well. So if you want to come check me out there, I'm on Twitch and of course Twitter, everywhere. Ericuts for the win. You'll find me. And thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
The pleasure and honor was ours. Great show, by the way. I saw the show with Solid Rev as well.
Yeah, we had Rev on for the hottest female characters. It was awesome.
Perfect candidate for that.
Perfect guess. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, both of you. Thank you all for the super chats. Honestly, it means a lot. Nico, thank you so much for the £2. Thanks, panel and chat was fun. You make it fun, guys. Honestly, you do. The great questions as well. Thank you so much for the support. We are ramping up content like mad. We don't sleep. After this ends, we're going to be recording more videos, and it's going to be great. Your support means a lot to us. So thank you so much. Hey, so where can people find you? Because I saw that little intro. You started streaming, and I've been watching you play Evil Within badly. It's so frustrating watching you play, but other people love it.
How very dare you? I play it just fine. It has some spiky difficulty, but it's going well. Yeah, I am streaming most evenings at the moment. I do have a schedule up as well, but Acer_GameOnDaily on Twitch. I upload the good stuff onto YouTube as well in a really nice high quality. So that's also Acer_GameOnDaily. So you can find me there. We'll close out here. So thank you so much, both guests. Both been great. Chat really good to watch. It's always good here every Saturday. So looking forward to next week. The usual montage is hopefully going to play when we close out, but it might not because things are bugging out a little bit. Of course, massive thanks to Isla as well for the trailer that played before this show came on. She stressed and put that together in really quick time for us, and it's fantastic. It is supposed to have volume as well, so I'm going to attempt to play that again afterwards, but we'll see what plays and what doesn't. Thank you for a great show, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.